न वहां कोई हमारी सीमा में घुस आया है, न ही कोई घुसा हुआ है, न ही हमारी कोई पोस्ट किसी दूसरे के कब्जे में है।
Friends, another Sunday 8 p.m. Indian time, and welcome to our program on Virat Hindustan Sangam social media channels of Words of Wisdom Gyan Ganga, which we host with Dr. Subramanian Swamy, and we have very different guests discussing various topics. Today we have another interesting topic, and we have a guest, Ambassador Phunchok Stobdan, who is a prominent Buddhist figure born in Ladakh. He is amongst the well-known Indian strategic thinkers, excelled in many other fields than national security and diplomacy, namely writing and shaping public opinion, for he often brings a fresh perspective to the issue confronting the nation. He is a scholar and an authority on Central Inner Asian affairs. He has also closely watched the Afghan conflict and the trends of development in POK, Gilgit and Baltistan. As a practitioner, Ambassador Stobdan has contributed immensely for the promotion of ancient Indian culture abroad. Among others, he was instrumental for the first time in getting the Mahabharata published in Turkic language. It is read in more than 10 countries today. And the author of that book was later awarded with the Padma Award by the Government of India in 2004. He is a well-known columnist. He writes very often for the Hindustan Times, Indian Express and the Tribune, and besides other newspapers. He is the founding president of the Ladakh International Center Leh. He is an advisory council of Oxus Society for Central Asian Affairs, Washington, D.C., a foundation member of Raja Ram Mohan Roy Library, Ministry of Culture. His two latest books are well known. I'll just tell it for the information of our viewers. The Great Game in the Buddhist Himalayas, India and China's Quest for Strategic Dominance, Penguin, India 2019. And the other book is India and Central Asia, the Strategic Dimension, published in 2020. So with this word, it is over to Dr. Swamy. Our topic today is the truth and facts about the situation in Ladakh. I have to thank my co-host Ramesh Swamy and our technical team led by Ashish Shetty, Swaminathan, Tejas Navalgul, Rakesh Gadgi, Ishwar Iyer, Ajesh Nair and Vishal Mehta. I have pleasure to inform you that our last episode, which was the 144th episode on the question of Gandhiji's assassination, unanswered question, we had a record viewership of 1,12,531 viewers from across the globe. So with this, it is over to our patron president, Dr. Subramanian Swamy, for his introductory remarks, and then our guest ambassador Phunchok Stobdan will enlighten us with his views on Ladakh and all the related issues are across that area and the region. Thank you. Over to Dr. Swamy.
Thank you, Jagdish. Today we are here to hear and listen to uh, our ambassador in the very areas that we are interested in today, and that is in our borders and beyond, a little beyond our borders. And he's also a Ladakhi, and so it's an area where very few people have gone in as tourists. Yeah, although it's a beautiful place and this infrastructure is developing. So in this context, I would like to pose some questions, but he's free to speak on what he wants, and he's free to not speak on what he doesn't want. We just want to hear him because he has acquired a reputation for being, because of his books and because of his columns, as a man who has gone into the depths of problems and speaks quite frankly. So I would like to say, first of all, that India and China, and I was very much involved in it because I had a cabinet rank position in Narasimha Rao's government at that time. India and China came to an agreement that till we settle our borders, let us have a line of actual control and respect it. So both of us signed it. And what we now hear since last April of 2020 is that we have suddenly discovered that the Chinese have entered some places. Government has not confirmed anything because they have taken a view that this is not in the national security interests. Even my parliament questions, they declined to answer on the same grounds, that is the national security interests. So we don't have an authoritative view. And of course, Ambassador Stobdan, you see, he may have some delicacies. He's not in service now. He's retired. But still, he is able to get information because of his earlier standing in the government in the Ministry of External Affairs. So, subject to his own discretion, I would like to ask the first question. We need to understand what really has happened that has spoiled or converted our relationship into what most people think is a hostile relationship. What is it that the Chinese have done, which in Ladakh, which we find as against our previous agreements and understandings, and why is the Chinese become aggressive the way they were never before for a long time? Over to you, sir, and then after you have spoken or whatever you want to say, including on this question, and then at the end of maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes or 30 minutes, then I will again ask one or two questions, and then my panel also will ask you questions, and then we'll conclude it between 9 and 9:15. So over to you, sir. We are all itching to and very anxiously waiting to hear from you because it's the first time a part of India which we never hear directly, we are hearing somebody who's a respected writer and also who has been an ambassador. So please tell us what is exactly the position in Ladakh today.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Subramanian Swamy, Dr. Shetty, and my friends there. Thank you very much. I think Dr. Swamy is the greatest Hindutva in our country, greatest, I suppose. And I am a person from Himwata, the place where Lord Shiva was born. He's partly a Ladakhi. He was born that side. And I also have the credential to be a Hindutva believer. And I think it's time for the greatest Hindutva leader in our country to be in the Rashtrapati Bhavan very soon. And I think you should vacate your Rajya Sabha seat for me. Then together we can do something very nice for the country or for the cause of Hindutva. Well, you asked a very interesting question, and there are no easy answers for all this. What really happened? But if you see the trends of event till the 2017 Wuhan summit between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi, everything was fine. And I thought it was going to be a give and take kind of a stage, that we come to a solution even on the most disputed problems or difficult questions between China and India. But by the time they met in Mahabalipuram in 2019, things really changed. Mahabalipuram was somewhere in September, October 2019. And I think that was after the abrogation of 370, which the Chinese side raised in a very, very angry mode. They went to UN Security Council also and raised the issue of why Ladakh has been made union territory. It affects our territorial, all these issues they have raised in a very big way along with Pakistan. And then after that, I think they just was looking for an excuse to come inside our territory. And they had some planned. What I think is that 370 removal has called off the Chinese bluff. They had some hidden agenda about Ladakh. All this while we've been talking about line of actual control, there is some line of perception, LAC, things like that. That's been part of our narrative. But we didn't realize that they had a geopolitical motives in Ladakh. That's the only motive that I have seen. And by May, June, they came inside, deep inside our territory, not I would say our territory, but on those areas where we had problems. And almost what happened on the 20th of November 1962, they came to that position and they left behind, but still they have been fudging all these stories about 1959 line, 1957 line, 1960 line, 62 line. All these things, they have been misleading the public opinion, both in India and outside. So they have played some mischief from May onwards, May 2020. And it started with Pangong Lake. And the other provocation that I can only see is that, they were used to our being very lax on the border. There used to be no patrolling in that area, especially in the, the northern, subsector north in Dapsang Plateau. Absolutely, there used to be a very few patrolling going on from our side because it's a very difficult area. Most of the time of the year, it is almost closed. Nobody can go there. Either it is flooded or it is snow covered. So even for the armed forces, it's very difficult to go there. Now we are building a road there. That's one provocation. That how could that India under Prime Minister Modi is doing all these things? It's a being asked. And there are a number of other bridges and roads that we're doing in that part of the area. So the Chinese are now very, very provoked. And it's not that the previous governments have not done it, but there were a lot of corruption. If you just open the Google and write about all the 𝐒𝐰𝐚𝐦𝐻, 𝐒𝐰𝐚𝐦𝐻 DBO roads and all these things, there is a CHA report. Crores and crores of rupees have been eaten away by contractors from where. But I think since 2014-15, construction work has been going in a very, very high speed. And that is one provocation. And this has been reported very clearly by the Chinese media that construction of Indian defense facilities are disrupting their Chinese border management and unilaterally changing the line of control and border area. That's the accusation they have been giving. But I would say that there could be a bigger political motives behind what they have done, and this will continue. But I would say that yes, when Prime Minister, you showed a clipping of the Prime Minister Modi's statement, he is absolutely right, because uh, we have lost nothing. We haven't lost Galwan. Galwan was lost to China during Nehru's time. 𝐒𝐻𝐿 was lost to China during Pandit Nehru's time. We were at PP 14 then. After 62, we are still holding PP 14 at Galwan. The Galwan Valley itself is with China. We are at the mouth of Galwan. The mouth of Galwan has a PP 14, the patrolling point 14, where we are still holding on. That incident that took place on the 20th of June or 15th of June 2020, it's at the PP 15. So there is a problem now. The Chinese are on the PP 15, and they are not moving away from there. That's a very, very difficult point. But in other area, we have seen some disengagement, especially in the Pangong area, north of Pangong and south of Pangong. But I am only worried about the subsector north, and they are doing something along with the Pakistanis now. I am only worried about that. Galwan is vulnerable, but there could be few more vulnerable points, and there is no agreed LAC, as you mentioned. Till a couple of years ago, we used to have two mutually agreed dispute areas, which is Trick Height in the north near DBO. The other is in the Phunchok area. These are the only two dispute points which mutually agreed. The other areas are differing perception on the line of control. Line of control is there, but my line of control is different from his line of control. There we will differ. So there is no exchange of map to say that, look, from like Pakistan, we have LOC. We know each and every point with Pakistan, where to go, where they sit and where we sit. But here in our case, in the East, we don't have a clear line where we could say this is Chinese or this is Indian. Of course, Chinese are sitting on illegally on our territories since 62. That's another matter that happened in the past. But even after 62, the LAC that we have come to a conclusion after 62, still differing. I mean, there is no common line. That's why all this conflict keep on taking place during the patrolling time, especially in the springtime. It will start now. I see in March, April, again, patrolling season will start. Now, of course, because of the problem, throughout the year, troops are patrolling. So this area denial, we call it, the area denial set by the Chinese for our troops to go in these areas. See, there is a DMZ, demilitarized zone, which they defined. Of course, we never believed in that. In 1962, they went back 20 kilometers. Actually, they didn't go 20 kilometers behind. If they had gone back to 7 September 1962 position, we would have then said, Pandit Nehru also agreed, yes, if that is, you are genuine about that withdrawal for 20 kilometers to 7th of October 1962, then some solution can be found. But they're not sincere about that. What they are saying is that whatever they have captured in 1962, now they are saying it is 7 October 1962. So they're fudging, they're falsifying all these facts. So what they are trying to do today is to come back to 1962 position and say, look, this is my area. So there is no India cannot withdraw from the area that which is already ours. This is the real position. But at the same time, I do feel that a negotiation should take place. Without a negotiation, nothing can be. We can wait for 1,000 years and nothing will happen. Once you start negotiating, you might gain, you might lose. That's a risk. That's why I think there is a political position is required. Prime Minister Modi is in a position to do so. His government is very strong. If any other Khichdi government comes, he won't be able to do. Even I see this opposition is making a lot of noise now, making things very difficult for Prime Minister Modi on the China issue. In fact, he has not given up anything, not even an inch. Technically, he's absolutely correct about what he has said. Na koi aaya hai, na wahan betha hai. He's fine. Nothing has happened to that extent. But the way they came in this time, in these gray areas, what we call a DMZ, demilitarized area, where patrolling area, they have built certain infrastructure. In case of a war, it will be very easy for them to now come in. That's the worrisome. They have gone back. There have been two series of disengagement. One in February, the other one is in August. And say in Pangong area, they have gone back to finger point 8. They had come up to 4. So they have gone back to 8, and we have come back to finger point 3, where Dan Singh Thapa's position is there. Memorial is there. So there has been some disengagement there. In certain other area like Gogra Post, what we have a point called PP17A, that has been done in August. Difficult area is that PP15, and I don't see an easy solution for that. But more than that, it is the Depsang area. The stake is very high in that area, something like 1,100 square kilometer. If you are not able to regain for patrolling, it's a patrolling area. Of course, it's not a defined area. If your Chinese continue to sit there in that gray zone area, then something like 1,150 square kilometer will be gone. It's not just the area, but they will then get connected to 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 glacier, and then with the POK, that's a very, very dangerous situation, and we should never allow that thing to happen. And I'm worried. There is a PP13 now where they are constructing a road, and if they do such a thing, they will come to another point like Galwan. They will touch our highway at a place called Murgo and Burse. That's again a very critical situation. We should never allow those things to happen. And if they do at that point at Murgo, then our access to Daulat Beg Ulde will be completely cut off. So Chinese are doing all these things. I don't know, but it's true that that we ourselves have not taken 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 very seriously. Either we should not have claimed in the first place in 1954, or if we have claimed it, we should be able to hold on to it. Just saying that every inch of this territory belongs to us, it doesn't mean anything. I will not give in. How will you regain it now? That's the problem. The problem is negotiation. And I think it is possible that what McCarthy and MacDonald has offered in 1899, that 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 should be divided between North and South, where the Chinese can keep the North, proper 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿, we get the Lingzithang and the rest of South 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 up to Pangong Lake. That is a reasonable thing, but I don't know any discussion taking place. Chinese are also not talking about it. They are talking about 1959 line, but 1959 line is the line of 1962 when they came in. So Chinese are not budging on that. So even the negotiation will be very hard to take place, and only a political solution is possible. We don't know how to do that, but probably it's not in our hand. We are part of the now great power game, and the United States is a factor. Russia is a factor. Russia is regulating India-China conflict or friendship or whatever you want to say, and the Americans are also watching very carefully. And every day the situation is changing. I thought the next meeting is going to take place on the 15th of February. But what has happened in Beijing 2 days ago on the flag bearer of the Olympics, I think then again a new action reaction process will continue. This is not the last thing to happen. We will continue to have problem here, and I don't see end of the tunnel any light, any good news coming on the eastern Ladakh side. The bad thing is that the Ladakhis are suffering. The nomads are really having a tough time going to their grazing places. We almost lost a lot of areas, pasture lands. This is the real issue. The eastern Ladakh itself has been neglected administratively. Leh is something like 300 kilometers away from whatever is happening, and the big man authority, the lieutenant governor of Ladakh, sits in Leh. So if you want to have control, effective control in terms of demography, in terms of presence, in terms of administration, then I think some changes should be brought in terms of strengthening the eastern Ladakh. Ladakh is too big. It's twice the size of it's Switzerland, or I don't know, it can cover half of Europe. It's a huge region. It's the biggest area in terms of district in the country. To have one district controlling those things are not sufficient. Those areas should be looked after carefully, very, very effectively. People should be empowered. The grazing area should be brought back from the Chinese. 10,000 to 80,000 yaks and sheep, almost more than 1 lakh, 2 lakh sheep go for winter pasturing. And all these areas now today being denied, keep on taking place. This is something like civilian conflict, civilian dispute, standoff in certain areas. It's not just military standoff, these are civilian standoff where the local people are involved. Now, if you go to Chushul, it's very, very difficult now. It's very sensitive. The Chushul village is just about half a kilometer away from the Chinese post. If I have a house in Chushul, I may not be able to even reconstruct that. I will be in the fear of the Chinese attacking the area, so I won't be able to build a house also. So that's a very, very critical area, the Chushul area, the south of Pangong. And now the Chinese are building huge things. There's a bridge now coming up. That bridge is so critical for the Chinese, and for us, our defense will be very problematic. There's a place called Rodok on the Chinese side, about 80-90 kilometers. Now they can come to Pangong Lake within, say, a couple of hours. It used to take whole day. 5-star roads are being built. Now the bridge from northern bank to southern bank at Kurnak, that will reduce the entire distance of certain military position in China to Galwan, to Pangong, to Depsang, and they can go right up to DBO. So that road is being built, and unless India does something, India has certain options. I'm not going to spell out. These are very, very serious things. It's a military operation. All is not lost, of course, but the way things are happening, I believe now that Imran Khan is in Pakistan. He is going to sell Skardu Airport to the PLA, and PLA will be permanently sitting in Skardu Airport. There are 4-5 runways there, and you have now 6 to 7 airports around Ladakh, the Chinese military airports. We are surrounded by Chinese military airport. There are 36 or 38 helipads they are building. And I don't know how we're going to respond. We can only respond militarily if we wish to by taking back 𝐶𝐾𝐲 Valley. There is a 59 kilometers gap from north of Siachen to Karakoram range. It's only 59 kilometers, which is a tri-junction between Pakistan, China, and India. I won't say China because they have Pakistanis have gifted away that area to the Chinese. It's called Terram Shahar. Most Indians don't know about this area. If we can retake that area, it's not much, 59-kilometer distance. And if we can regain that 𝐶𝐾𝐲 Valley, parts of 𝐶𝐾𝐲 Valley, then the Chinese, Pakistani, that nexus can be broken easily. Otherwise, they are building big highways. It is not just G314. Now they're building a new road, which will be south of the Karakoram. Whatever they have today between India and China and Pakistan is north of the Karakoram, and then going into POK. What these people are now trying to do is to build a road south of the Karakoram, and through Siachen Glacier, they go into POK. That's a very dangerous proposition. Then Leh will not exist. The Nubra Valley will not exist. They will be in the Indus Valley, and the situation is over. One should not see such a kind of a bad scenario, but we should be always prepared. And what I see is that there is no expertise, there is no understanding about Ladakh. Looking at Ladakh only through military point of view is not enough. Ladakh is a geography, Ladakh is a history, Ladakh is about land, Ladakh is about people. I have not seen anything in our discourse since the Galwan incident took place about the Ladakh itself. And every day the Chinese have a column on Ladakh these days, how Ladakh belongs to Tibet and how Tibet belongs to China. They want to revisit their history from Tang dynasty and from the Yuan dynasty to the Ming dynasty to the Qing dynasty. And they say there is a continuity of control through the lamas and priest and the pattern, the king and the lamas. And they come with a lot of justification, and they're changing the discourse. What I'm trying to say is that the new narratives is being built. And unfortunately, we don't have a Ladakh story. We have a core there, military people sitting there. But what is our position on Ladakh? We seem to be having a position on Tibet, but not on Ladakh. That's strange. And all this while, even J&K, we were focused on Kashmir, not on Ladakh. If you had focused on Ladakh, we would have solved Pakistan problem, we would have solved China problem also. But we have ignored. That's a problem. We don't have a Himalayan policy also. After all, Ladakh is Western Himalaya, which the British propagated. Today, we don't talk about Western Himalaya. Himalaya, I don't know, it's an ecology or some trees or some snow or some rivers. But Himalaya is a big geopolitical area. But how many people people do, Tawang and Gangtok and some Kathmandu, these are not enough. Chinese come out with bigger narratives, a big picture they build, and they implement. Even if it is about a temple, they will work hard on the temple through scholars, through historians, but then they will convert that into a military action through PALA. Ultimately, if a historian writes something about a temple, a research on the temple goes to political system. The political system hands it over to the PALA, how to regain the temple. So it doesn't remain just an academic exercise in the case of China. Now, in our case, everything is academic. We only talk, that mountain, that story, Pangong Lake, Three Idiot, Amir Khan, all those things. You'll be very surprised when I go to some ministries. Oh, Mr. Stobdan, where are you come from? So I come from Ladakh. Oh, Three Idiot. No, that's strange. They identify me with Three Idiots, which is some Kareena Kapoor and some actors actresses went there in the Pangong Lake. They shot a film there. No, this is very strange, and we are not serious about it. So just militarily handling is not sufficient. We need to think in a bigger way, in a substantive way. So we don't have the expertise, and we will not have the expertise also. Because if I am asked to handle the China border problem, I will handle China problem very differently. I asked the Bhutanese, how do you handle the China problem? You have such a big boundary with China. He says, look, we have a different way of dealing with the Chinese. India has a different way. But unfortunately, there is no Ladakhi inputs in the boundary management. It's all handled by armed forces or ITBP or MEA. These are only hush-hush things, secret things. We don't get to know what is happening, what is not happening. So I would suggest that Eastern Ladakh should be given a focus, not that we should ignore Northern Ladakh and Western Ladakh, or even Southern Ladakh called Zanskar and Nubra and the Kargil. These are very, very important areas. But Eastern Ladakh is going to be a permanent conflict area. I wish it doesn't become like a permanent conflict like what we've seen in the valley. If the Chinese intend to convert Ladakh into a permanent conflict zone, then it is not in my interest, because I have a lot of tourists coming from all over the countries. I want them to come there and not to make this area a disturbed area. We can prevent it. We should not allow this area to become like a, unstable area, which will kill our industry, the tourism industry and other whatever industry that we have. So beyond that, if you have any other question, I will be very happy to answer.
Sure. Thank you, sir. It's a very scintillating and very logically placed thing. We really enjoyed a lot of new information. I'll start with the questioning, giving questions thing. Then my colleagues will take over after you've answered some of my questions. You can answer any question you wish. You need not answer any question you don't wish to answer. Now, first of all, this Pangong Lake, they are building a bridge. And now I'm told that I've heard this here and there, that Chushul has the best airport of Ladakh. And the Chinese have got their eyes on it. Do you think that's correct? Number two, as a part B of that, why did we give up Kailash having occupied it? Do you think that we gained anything out of it by giving it up? And when they are not giving up anything, what are we doing in giving it up? And finally, you see, Depsong is vital because if you look at little left on the map, it goes very close to that area where which is all ice and ice and ice. That you mentioned, Siachen, and which we have spent a lot of lives to protect and keep with us. But it will become very easy for them to take over Siachen. So I would like to know whether the Depsong thing, presence of China or China around the nearby, would you say that in terms of protecting us from our overall national security consisting of dealing with Pakistan also, whether we should be doing something more in Depsong area? And finally, one of your colleagues, the former foreign secretary, Mr. Gokhale, wrote a book in which he said that Russia is a junior partner of China. And a lot of others have also said it. The Hungarians have written, research institutes have said it. And generally speaking, I also find by looking at the statements of Russia, they seem to be very keen to see that not to be on the other side of China. So how can Russia possibly mediate between us and China when they are a junior partner of China? This is one question which you may not want to answer, but I couldn't resist after your comments. you say that the Chinese say that this part of Ladakh is part of Tibet, that part is part of Tibet. Do the Tibetans agree with this? Especially so many Tibetans are there in India. Do they agree with this? So how can the Chinese claim it when the Tibetans have not claimed it? Over to you, sir.
Sir, you're absolutely right. We used to have a airstrip at Chushul in 1962. But after the war, we abandoned it. What I heard when I was young was from the villager in Chushul. I've been to Chushul a couple of times. So the Chinese objected that when the aircraft landed at the airstrip, the shadow of the airplane fell on the Chinese territory. It's so close. I mean, right at the bank of the border, the airstrip is there. So we stopped using that airstrip. It was built in the 50s or something. I just got to know from an American colleague who dug out a video of 1947, couple of weeks before we got independent, in which Maulana Abul Kazam and Abdul Kalam and the creator of Pakistan, what's his name? Pandit Nehru and all these guys were sitting together, and they were sending a mission to Chushul to create an airport to launch an attack on China. This was before independence. Surely those airports have been built around that time during the Cold War period. Now I don't think it's very difficult. And when I asked a official here who were concerned with the road building, they were telling me that we will build a big road like you do in Gurgaon, Delhi type of a road where aircraft can be landed. So there is a plan, but now they are sitting there. We have given up Kailash range. You are absolutely correct. But I don't think that was a mistake. Kailash range, we had to withdraw it because we had to gain something in the north of Pangong. North of Pangong, they had come up to finger 4. Almost they have reached finger 3. And they build roads there, permanent roads, something like 4-5 kilometers long road. And it was very difficult to push them back to finger 8. So in the process of bargaining, I think we had to take a call on the Kailash range. And I won't say that is the lost case because we can easily take it back. They're so vulnerable. The Moldo is where the garrison sit there, the Chinese garrison. We can take it in 5 minutes if you want. So it's not a very strong argument to say, I've been asked this question by so many people, why we gave up Kailash range. We are so stupid. We have lost the advantage. Well, sitting in Delhi, you can build such kind of emotive kind of stories, but on the ground, it is very, very difficult to argue in such kind of a manner. So, but what is worrying is this bridge that you are talking about is just 400, 500 meters long at Kurnak Khar. Kurnak used to be Ladakhi land before, much before in history. Now it's with the Chinese. And they are building from there, from the north to south bank, a 400 meter, which will reduce the total distance now to something like 200 long kilometer will be shortened to just half a kilometer. So the travel distance would be from 1 day to just 2-3 hours. So that's a big advantage for them. If they have such kind of strong motives now, then I think they have a plan, long-term plan to capture many other areas. Obviously, it becomes so vulnerable militarily. The other areas like Indus Valley, Shayok Valley, these are river valleys. If the whole purpose of the Chinese has to push the Indian troops south of the Indus and the south of the Shayok River. That's a very dangerous proposition. We should never allow that thing to happen. And we must think out of the box. I don't say that we should have a military answer, but we should start thinking about all these area much more seriously in political terms, in terms of scholarship, in terms of understanding this area, knowledge about the Chinese. I don't see any good sinologists. Ambassador Gokhale is fine, but Ambassador Gokhale doesn't understand Chinese psychology, Chinese history, Chinese philosophy, Chinese mind. If I spend 2 3 years in China, I don't become China expert. You have to baptize there yourself to be Chinese, eat Chinese food, have good. Understanding China is not a political science subject. It's not an easy subject. Understanding China, you requires at least you should know Sanskrit or Pali language. Half of their mind is conditioned by Sanskrit. Maybe I would say 10 to 20% of their mind is controlled by Confucius, stories, but the majority, 7 to 80% of their brain and thought process, psychology is conditioned by our Pali, Brahmi, all the literature that went from here. We taught them ethics, we taught them philosophy. They were barbarics like Mongols. So we must understand we ourselves don't speak Sanskrit. That's a tragedy. And I think next president of India should be a Sanskrit knowing president who should be sitting in the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And every institution should be headed, especially those who deal with China, should compulsorily know Sanskrit and Pali. I don't know why we shy away from, the Sanskrit is a language of God. The Chinese say. If you ask the Chinese, why do you learn Sanskrit? They says, no, it's a language of God. If I go to heaven, I will talk to the gods and the goddesses. So there are such deep thinking is required. Unfortunately, I don't see. I'm not a China expert. My expertise in Central Asia. I do talk about some border situation because I belong to that place and I'm affected directly. My welfare is affected. My life is affected by what the Chinese are doing. So I do take some interest. But I speak 3 Chinese languages. I speak Mongol. I was in Mongolia. I speak Tibetan and I speak the Uyghur language. And I can say that I don't know Mandarin, but I know enough about what Chinese are doing in other places, not just in Ladakh.
One point I would add to what you just said about Sanskrit. There was a very famous poet in China called Hu Shi. He was the president of Beijing University and later ambassador to UK or Britain, as it's called. He gave a lecture at Harvard University, a title, "The Indianization of China: A Case of Peaceful Borrowing from India." And he just describes exactly what you said. Today, when Indians read it, they can't believe it. But I'm glad that you have brought it out for our viewers. And I think this kind of thing should be propagated.
No, if we believe in our own thoughts, in our own philosophy and language, the others will start respecting us. If you like a slave, if you speak in English, unfortunately, you are an Indian. I am also an Indian. We speak in American language. It's very sad affairs. It's a very sad situation. I'm not a proud, I don't feel proud to speak to you in English. It's my compulsion because we have been trained like that institutionally. I was never taught Sanskrit by anybody. I would have loved to learn it. But if we don't respect ourselves, don't believe in our own history, religion, culture, the others are not, don't expect others respecting you. Now, I don't.
You have excuse me. You have a 𝐒𝐻𝐵𝐺 in Ladakh, somewhere beyond Leh. You heard of that monastery, no? 𝐻𝐵𝐺.
Oh yeah, it's the biggest. It's the biggest. 45% of our revenue land is owned by that monastery, and the head of that monastery is a Chinese citizen. Unfortunately, he lives in Lhasa. And he must be around 88, 89 in his last stage, and his rebirth has to be found, and I am concerned about that. He's not returning. I don't know why he's not returning. He was here in 1950s. Again, he came in 90s for a short while. Then he's a married man. He lives in Lhasa in Chengdu in Sichuan province. His name is Taksang Raspa. He is the chief of that monastery. I'm seriously concerned about that. And I don't want anybody else to control that area except our own people. Unfortunately, most of these religious places are not in our control. That's a very, again, a serious problem. And I wish not to talk about those religious issues, which are, again, linked with politics. But unfortunately, people do not understand religion has a different meaning and politics has a different meaning. If you mix up, then your result is something else, a very cocktail kind of a result. It's not a very pleasant thing. So this Himis thing is a very serious issue. I think government of India should be concerned. So far, nobody has consulted me except the Americans. Of course, the Americans do talk to me where they're going wrong. But the Indian government never asked me where the Indian government is going wrong. They said, we know everything. We know everything. We need to ask you. And that's a tragedy. Well, I can say that because I'm not in the government anymore. But if I was in the government, I will also not ask anybody else. I will pretend as if I know everything. So the sinologists are lacking some.
Yes. Ramesh, you want to ask any questions?
Can I say something on the Russia thing?
Yes, please.
Go ahead. You are.
I don't think Russia is a junior partner of China. I asked this question to the Russians in Moscow 2 years ago, and I keep on having this webinar with them. Said, you can call us aunt of China, not junior partner. And they are not genuine partner. I would say they are not genuine friends. Just as Pakistan and China are not genuine friends, they're compulsion. You can say India and China are not genuine enemies. But Russia and China are not genuine friends. Certainly they are not. They have long border history. History is very bitter with them. Our history is not so bitter. There are certain things, most of all this anti-China thing is also built up at the lowest level. And the result you get is this Olympic thing. They also now start playing very cheap, taking their hero as a torchbearer to they are also hitting us in those kind of way. But when I watch Indian television, we are so full of, it's not required. You are overhyping the China threat. China is not strong. I'm telling you, let's not overplay China. China can be dealt that subtlety we don't have to deal with. That part we have lost. In our psyche, our diplomats, I don't know how they are good at. I can't criticize our diplomat, but the subtle manner in which we used to handle diplomacy, that I think that tradition is gone. Maybe generational gap is there. Now we want to deal digitally. China, I don't know how do you deal digitally with China. I don't know. Most of the apps are theirs. We closed all of them, but the trade is going up. There is no economic cost for the Chinese to stay in Pangong Lake or Galwan. Because they are earning almost 100 billion from us, surplus trade. $126 billion. And if there is no economic cost for them, then either we don't have a China policy or our China policy is not working. That is what I can say, because they are earning money from us and they are sitting on our land also. It's a win-win situation for them. We need to rethink, in a different way. But certainly Russia, China, that's the real politic, what they call it. The Russians are very good at that in tactically playing friendship and enemies. India, they cannot really betray because there will be a strong emotion in the Russian public. The Russian public loves India. They can't live without India. But the Russian public do not like the Chinese. They don't like the Chinese. The governments have compulsion. That's another matter. But at the popular level, China is not famous in Russia or anywhere. But I don't see even in India, even Prime Minister Modi loves Russian. I think we all love Russia, whatever we may say, but they don't harm us in a very nasty way like the Americans do. Every now and then they raise issues. And I'm telling you, don't forget that we could save Kashmir because of Russia in the 50s and the 60s at the UN Security Council. They're the ones who always stood for us. And when we were asking for all these big things, nobody gave us except the Russians. Okay, today, 21st century India looks rich, so everybody is offering a lot of things. But this will. But I believe in the long run, after Putin, things will change. Putin is so smart that Putin will not make India and China a close friend. Putin is also smart enough that China and United States don't get along. It's a very, very clever leader. I think what is happening in Ukraine, and he is playing very nicely. And so far, please don't forget that everybody thought it is a tension between between China and United States. And suddenly now this has become a Russia versus United States. He has stolen the show. The global show he has stolen. It's no longer much about China and United States. China has gone into the back burner now. But I believe on Wednesday there's going to be a Quad summit where the Americans are again now saying, no, we have not forgotten China. We will contain you and we will contain Russia also. Now, if you are part of that dual containment strategy, then I think it's not a good thing for us to get trapped into the big power game. We should play our own game. We should maintain our autonomy. So I don't think that Russia is the junior partner. That's not a correct way to interpret. One can say like that, but they're very upset when you say these things.
Right. Okay, Ramesh.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Stobdan. You mentioned something that the government is not ready to listen to you. First, they have to acknowledge that there is a problem before we start listening. So the first step is probably they have not acknowledged that there is definitely a problem. And you've explained it beautifully in multiple places, and you pretty much focused in Ladakh area. What was surprising to me in this talk, Dr. Swamy, was that he said about the religious places, how China is taking advantage of it. And we are completely losing taking our eyeball out of that and thinking more, that China is going to be big, large, and this and that. And you've mentioned it so many times, Dr. Swamy, that China, it's very easy to deal with China in terms of militarily. And I think Mr. Stobdan is also echoing that, saying that, we should not be, quote unquote, afraid of China per se. But Mr. Stobdan, do you have any idea on Arunachal Pradesh, or is that something that you focus only exclusively on Ladakh area?
Well, I think Arunachal Pradesh, internally they have surrendered. They don't think that they will get it back from India, and we can't give it back also. The tricky question is the Tibetan issue is much more linked with Arunachal than in Ladakh. But now you can always say that Ladakh has equally come into that category. Ladakh, every minute, every second, the word Ladakh is circulating on the Google trillion times, which makes Ladakh very, very like Hong Kong. Like I heard about Hong Kong, the Xinjiang, Taiwan, all this problem, but Ladakh was not a strong dispute kind of thing. But if you tell 100 times lies, then it becomes truth.
True.
So that is what's happening. If you prolong the conflict, then you end up in a different kind of a problem. Why do you allow Ladakh to become a geopolitical issue? And once Ladakh is gone, then it's, there is Pakistan, there is Russia in the north, then a whole lot of complication with Islam and other things. It's not a very good thing to let that happen. The Kashmiris are always there to, raise those issues. Arunachal Pradesh, they are consolidating, they are hinting again and again. This boy recently who was we lost on the other side, he said he's an Indian. That means that they didn't say he's a Chinese, at least. So they acknowledged that that boy was an Indian. So invariably, indirectly, they hint that that it is Indian, but they are not. We are not ready to compromise on Aksai chain and other things. So it's a complicated thing. That package deal which Deng Xiaoping offered, we rejected. I think we should review it. And I strongly believe, I'm a proponent of those that dialogue is better than deterrence. You know, you can say it's a Buddhist approach, but I also study military. China has gone too ahead. That doesn't mean that I demoralize Indian army, but practically, I think everybody knows that Chinese have gone ahead with the military modernization. They are prepared. They have come with a new law on the border issues, including on the Arunachal Pradesh. We are yet to think about this Himalayan belt. We mixed up. I think we are playing into the Chinese hand. We got trapped into the Chinese discourse of confusing Himalaya with Tibet. No, Himalaya is a mountain range. Tibet is a plateau. You can have a cultural overlapping kind of a thing, but even here, the Britishers who tried to draw boundaries, whether it is McMahon line or the Johnson line or whatever line they drew not on cultural basis. They drew on the basis of watershed principle, a geographic principle. How Himalaya is different from plateau on the other side is that this is unified by monsoon. Himalaya get monsoon. In Tibet, there is no monsoon. And then they anglicize the Bhutanese, the Nepalese, the Ladakhis, the Sikkimese. Everybody south of the Himalayas, they thought it's their frontier. And that's why I think the British strategists were very clear about frontier thinking in their mind. Today, I don't know what is our frontier. There is no frontier policy. There are some states in the Himalayas, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and we deal politically with them, with different chief minister. Elections are held. But to handle Himalaya that way will be very tricky because Himalaya is now claimed by the other side also. And, this making the Himalaya a little bit hazy is not a good thing. We should have a very clear idea. My understanding of what American think is that they need to liberate Tibet, and why not? They should liberate Tibet from China, but the matter doesn't stop there. The Americans say that part of Tibet is in India also. So then the problems will come. Once the Americans start sitting in Lhasa, they will think about Sikkim, they will think about other places, they will think about me. Of course, if I become a citizen on the other side, maybe I become a big man, I don't know. But here I have to compete with 1.3 billion people. That side we will have to compete with 6 million people or something like that. So what I'm trying to say that I believe in a system where as a Ladakhi, I feel more confident in India because it's in a garden where there are a lot of flowers. A Tamilian doesn't threaten me because a Tamilian can never become Ladakhi. A Ladakhi can never become a Malayali because our roots are very different. But in China, a Stobdan can easily become Shuangshua or something like that. They will eat me up. My name will be another addition in their dictionary, in their vocabulary, and there will be 10 million Stobdans in Tibet. So, it will be very difficult for me to retain my identity. I'm quite happy with India, and I will not like to, at whatever cost, lose my nationality as an Indian. And thanks to General Zorawar Singh, we became part of this. Unfortunately, yes, none of our Indian people talk about the history of Indian claim over Ladakh. Who claimed Ladakh? Ladakh was before. No, now you can say it is part of India after the instrument of accession by Hari Singh. But before that, we were not part of India. Yes, Mughals came, Aurangzeb came there. He helped us a lot in the 17th century. Then the Sikhs came, these Dokras came. They went up to Mount Kailash. That's the core of Indian civilization, and we don't talk about it. He was beheaded in Tibet by the other side, the Manchus and the Tibetans, but that's not part of our narrative. And I tell you, if at all we should have a Tibet policy, is to get our Mount Kailash and Mansarovar back.
Great.
Yeah. Otherwise, India itself is not complete. India is incomplete without having, don't forget that in October when the instrument of accession in 1947, October 26th, Hari Singh has signed an instrument of act. He called himself as the Shriman Indra Mahendra Raj Rajeshwara Maharaja Dheeraj Shri Hari Singh Ji Jammu and Kashmir Naresh Tatha Tibet Adi Desha Dipati, which means that he is not just the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, including POK, of course, but also the areas of eastern Ladakh, including 𝐒𝐻𝐻, as well as the territory he controlled inside Tibet. There is a huge area on the bank of Mansarovar Lake called Mansar, which Nehru gave as a gift to the Chinese, and say extraterritorial rights have been given up by the India. But how did you give up? You had no authority because we had 370 article. Indian Parliament cannot decide on that to give up Ladakhi territory to the Chinese as long we were part of the Jammu and Kashmir. You were bound by 370 article. The Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir would have passed that judgment or a resolution that you give up your extraterritorial rights to Chinese in 1954. So we've lost that land. It is deep inside China, 296 kilometers. Can you believe it? And Zorawar Singh all the way up to Garhwal, up to Mount Kailash, and made that as a part of India. Unfortunately, this British betrayed us. This Cunningham said, please come back, come back. By the time he was trying to come back, the Tibetans killed him. And it's a huge humiliation. If at all we have a claim, I won't give too much emphasis on 𝐒𝐻𝐻. I will give emphasis on Kailash Mansarovar. That's our original area. That was part of Ladakh. We lost it in 19. If Aurangzeb had not come, we would have lost the entire Ladakh to the Chinese and the Tibetans, and in 1684. And then the Mughals came and helped us on the condition that we convert to Islam. Unfortunately, they went back and we didn't convert ourselves. So, we were lucky to escape that time. But nonetheless, I think we were asked to build a mosque in Leh. We still have a mosque. And on those conditions, the condition was such that our kings was ready to convert to Islam, but not to become a part of China. It was such a strong decision for us in that point of time. But Aurangzeb said, okay, I'll help you. So he came and he helped us. He sent his troops from Jammu or wherever, Kashmir. And then the Chinese were driven back. But they came again a number of times. Then the Bhutanese helped us. Then the British came, but British were very cunning people. They were losing trade in coastal China. They didn't want to harm the Chinese in Ladakh. That was their problem. I know their weakness, you may say, their problem, you may say, they were playing all the time dirty. But although only one gentleman called William Moorcroft, he is the only person who said Ladakh is so important, we should take full responsibility in the defense and the boundary and everything. But all other British officials were cunning. They were mercantile interests they had. East India Company was looking for some business somewhere, and they relaxed on Ladakh. So we've been a victim of the British, mercantile interest, and that will continue. In Arunachal Pradesh, I would say, I don't think they expect us to give it back. They will continue to make a lot of noises. These name-changing exercises keeps taking place now. You see, they have Sinified or Tibetanized those names in Arunachal Pradesh. This time, another series of names have been changed. But Arunachal, the Tibetans cannot say this is theirs because we have liberated. It was not a part of Tibet, it was a colony of Tibet. So the British, when they are liberated from Tibet itself, and we forced them to sign that 1914 Shimla Agreement. It's been part of it's a long history. It's a long history, and I don't think we should allow that thing to happen. But if you let the Tibetans go back to China and then keep saying that Arunachal is part of Tibet, then it is difficult for us. Then they should stay here and don't say anything. That's a problem we have. Ladakh is a complete different. It's an empty area. They are taking more and more area as a bargaining, so that in some stage they will use it as a bargaining chip. They will be ready to withdraw provided we give up some other point somewhere else. So the Chinese are master of deception, and they continue to play these games.
Right.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. You have narrated to us on various issues, and you have put it how tension is on the border. But why do you think our Prime Minister must have, what do you think the Prime Minister must have discussed in these 18 meetings with his counterpart, the Chinese counterpart? And then, as you have mentioned all these things, what could have been the discussion on these 18 meetings which have taken place between India and China? Because the meetings took place, cordial atmosphere, and all of a sudden this tension happened in 2020. So what must be the meetings all about?
You see, Prime Minister Modi has been to China so many times before he became Prime Minister.
Yes.
As Chief Minister of Gujarat also, he has been there. He was very impressed with we all are impressed with the development that China has done, not just Prime Minister Modi. So, Gujarat model and all that development model, all these things, of course, he must have taken a lot of inspirations from the Chinese approaches. And initial meetings were not just bilateral, but these were multilateral platforms where he must have met most of the at BRICS summit or SCO summit or G20 or something, some other climate change meeting, things like that. But the focus those days was more on the investment, bilateral relationship. And then he also played the soft power game. He went to Sihan. He played the Buddhist diplomacy also. There are 5 to 600 million Buddhists. They don't hate us. They love us. Of course, they call India a Western heaven. Western heaven, Sukhavati, they call it. Prime Minister knows all these problems. I don't think it's Prime Minister Modi's problem or Xi Jinping's problem. It's a problem we don't know. It's part of the global politics. How during Trump period, the entire global politics have changed, and now under Biden, it's become worse, I think. Unfortunately, even this COVID virus and all these things have been brought into all this discussion. So atmosphere was vitiated anyway. And I told you till 2017-18 things were fine. That's why some people I don't make this argument about 370. 370 means that, according to the Chinese understanding, there are autonomous regions in China, autonomous regions of Tibet, autonomous region of Xinjiang, autonomous region there are a couple of autonomous regions. Most of them are not autonomous. They are normal provinces of China. Now, according to their understanding, they thought that Article 370 is like some provinces, autonomous province of China. It's not like that. It was part of India, integral part of India, and everything applies according to Indian Constitution. So this 370, probably 370 and 35A, they didn't understand properly. why we made these changes. So they thought it's a big thing they have done, like incorporation of Tibet into China in 1950s. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like, so the response was very funny, partly because of ignorance, partly they handled they had some hidden agenda about Ladakh that got exposed. It came out immediately after the 370 thing. Why would they go to UN Security Council about this? Taking this issue. And they become so belligerent, so noisy about Ladakh, and then they followed by military action. So it hit them very hard. I don't know whether Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah knew all these things, that Chinese will get angry. Probably we didn't have any idea. Jaishankar as a foreign secretary went there after 5th August to explain that this will not impact our boundary dispute or boundary line. But the Chinese insisted, no, you have done something very wrong. And to the extent they said it affects our territorial integrity. How it affects unless they have substantive proof. I can only guess that in 1959, when they gained control over Potala, the headquarters of Tibet government, probably they found out a lot of documents there. And those documents would have been the maps of monasteries, the maps, network of sectarian linkages with various, whether Bhutan or Arunachal, Sikkim. Those are religious documents. And those religious documents, the Chinese, again, the stupidity would be to translate that into a political story, which they are very good at. Because from the Manchu days and the Ming days, it's all Chinese nationalism is, again, it's a religious-based nationalism. That's why revolution came, communist revolution, because it was worse during Qing dynasty. And I'm telling you, the Communist Party of China is claiming very minimum area from Ladakh. When I went to Taiwan a couple of 10 years ago, I said, "Oh, Mr. Stobdan, you are from Ladakh." "Yes, I'm from Ladakh." "Oh, next time you don't need to come with any visa. You come just like that. You are company citizen." What I'm trying to tell you is that before the Communist Party came, it was the Tibetans, the Manchus, the Mongols who are ruling China. This minority Chinese. The Manchus are minority in Manchuria. Mongols are from Mongolia. Tibetans are from Tibet. And their claim area go up to South Siberia, to far east of Russia, to South China Sea. South China Sea was claimed by Taiwanese much before the PRC claim. That is why I'm saying, even on Ladakh, the nationalist Chinese claim is much more bigger than the Communist Party's claim. So we haven't studied all these things carefully. If Communist Party goes away tomorrow, and if there are strong nationalist Chinese come to power, they will say, up to Zojila Pass is mine, or Shimla is mine, because their history is quite different from Communist Party of China's history. So these guys are more ideological, but the other guys are more nationalist. The nationalists can be far more dangerous than the communists. Are very control ideology. They see their party interest. It's a different equation altogether. The nationalists can be very difficult for us. So we need to think in a different way, in a comprehensive way. Not that Communist Party is, but Communist Party is just in the name. Nobody is communist today in China. Everybody is a Buddhist. Every Communist Party offers send money to Dalai Lama or some officers, or they came in the newspapers. They send money to Panchen Lama or some temples and the monasteries for their good luck, for their good family luck, for money, prosperity, and promotion in the Communist Party. The ICCR chairman, former chairman Lokesh Chandra used to say that the roots of Communist Party is the Buddhism. The roots, the ground level roots. Like in India, if you have a BJP party, the roots are coming from somewhere else. There's also Sangha there. So there are Buddhist Sangha in China. We also have Sangha here. The Sanghas are very powerful. They define the politics, the contours of politics. Communist Party is just a superficial nomenclature. They have to keep it. They have to keep it as a relic. But the dynamics of the Chinese politics is, I think, it is driven by much deeper underpinnings. Those are could be religious, but they try to distinguish between religion and superstition. Certain things they don't like, and they dub it as superstition. Certain things that say it's religion. For most outsiders, they say, "Oh, China is anti-religion." But the Chinese Communist Party know that religion is very powerful source for the survival of Communist Party of China itself. So they won't touch religion. What they will do is certain magic power, certain this black magic or superstitions which can harm the minds of the people to join the Communist Party of China. Those things they are doing. So they destroy certain temples which they think they are doing some tantric exercise or something like that.
Sir, I have another question to you. What do you think will happen on the Chinese front and Indian front, diplomatically and military, in the next 1 year? Can you just make give some idea to the viewers? What do you foresee in the next 12 months, and especially the coming winter, the coming summer on the border?
If you think that the Chinese have not gone for full-fledged war against us, I think Winter Olympics are holding them. They told the Russians also not to attack Ukraine till I finish my Olympic. So they always look for timings. If you are looking for that kind of timing, immediately what I can say is that now after the Winter Olympics, they will again start flexing their muscles on the Ladakh border.
Right.
The infrastructure, the kind of things they are building on the other side, there are two military districts there. One is the Xinjiang military district, the other is a Tibet. Somewhere near Pangong Lake, it gets divided between Tibet and Xinjiang. But it's a Western military command. The kind of preparation which is going on there, I cannot say it is only meant for Ladakh only. They think that from Depsang to Pamir mountain, it forms one security belt for them to check extremism, ISIS, Taliban, militancy from Afghanistan. They have a wider perspective on this military aspect. So while on the Russian and the Central Asian and other front, Chinese are dealing diplomatically through Shanghai Cooperation Organization, through economic dealings, through cooperation. On the Indian side, they are doing conventionally. Military convention methodology is used for managing the China-India border. But on other fronts, there is not much action taking place, say, on the Afghan side. They have some preparation going on, but they don't talk about the penetration of Taliban or Islamic terrorists into Xinjiang. It's not part of their discourse. On the Xinjiang, there are 3-4 countries there. They deal with those countries quite differently. And most of these countries have gone for the Olympic game. Our Prime Minister has just had a summit with them, but they have went to China also. So you can see they love us, but they can't live without China. That's a problem for most of the countries. They're in debt now. Immediate terms, it's very difficult to predict Chinese behavior. It's a very opaque way of dealing with us, especially with India. The last border meeting, which took place, the 14th round of talk, I think last month or early this month, was that they come out with very trivial issues like, your media is very noisy. Tell them to keep quiet. They're telling our military commanders, And why your VIPs are keep coming here, in the border areas? So they always looking for excuses. They keep on changing their goalpost. So you can't predict the Chinese. And I think that if the meeting was scheduled to be held on the 15th of February now, 1 week ahead, I'm not very sure that meeting will be held because what happened on the Olympic thing, India will rethink about. It's an insult. Well, the Chinese can do whatever they want to do. We have our own right to look at that Olympic issue in our own way. What will provoke them, I suppose, is that coming Wednesday there is a Quad meeting, and I think our foreign minister is going again. Chinese thought we forgot about Quad, but the Americans are raising Quad again, and there will be summit next time in Australia or in somewhere. It will continue. So I say action reaction, syndrome will be there. One cannot predict what will happen. Only thing is that it will drain our resources. That's a worrisome. I know the cost of keeping 50,000 troops there in such a difficult area. The Chinese also not so easy for Chinese either. And let me tell you, the feedback that I get from our own troops, Ladakhi troops, is that they don't have that kind of a military training. They are, very, very fragile troops. Maybe technologically they may be savvy, but they are not battle-hardened soldiers. They can be defeated very easily. That I can assure you. One good thing has happened after Galwan incident, and especially this figure has come out. We knew about this figure. My expectation was 43. Now it is, the Australians are saying 38. My sources says that 43 bodies were counted, lifted by helicopters on our side by the Chinese helicopters. But this number only limited to the choppers picking up the bodies. The number does not include the bodies which has flown into the river. It may have gone to the other side also. So my estimate is total 125. 125. The rest have been just flown into the river. I won't say we have killed them. They just they slept from the mountain into the river with the boulders. The head injury, and the river was frozen, almost like a cold zero temperature. Even in June, it remains zero there. Most of them would have died in the river, and they may have been flown to the other side. So number is much more. Unfortunately, lack of language, knowledge of Chinese language, is that this number could have been identified if our students and the universities learn thorough Chinese and pick up from the vernacular media, say Sichuan or some other Yunnan or some. How many bodies have been cremated? They all feature in the local media, not in Global Times and China Daily. These are features in some provincial, sub-county level newspaper. Unfortunately, we don't read more than China Daily and Global Times. That will not give you full information. So I am also worried because now, since we don't have any academic contact or any source of information coming from China, we will be knowing nothing after 10 years because the Chinese have the other way to know about us. Chinese know us through Nepal. They have a good setup in Nepal to understand us. Most of our crazy experts go on the Kathmandu channel and speak out their mind. And the Chinese, it's linked with Chengdu or the military district there. They have a good way of understanding us through maybe even Bangladesh, maybe from Sri Lanka, from Maldives. They are in South Asia, they have entrenched. So they know us very well. In comparison, our understanding of knowing China is little limited now, more limited because of the restriction that we ourselves have imposed. That's not the way that we should do it. For example, the boycott policy, to me, doesn't seem to have worked. We are buying more Chinese product. And I saw in a Global Times that we bought more than 6,800 items. 6,800 items. These are basically spare parts. for cars or mobile or computers. And the Global Times said, at least you buy all such big items from us, you assemble and sell it to third country and make money. That's what the Chinese are offering to us. It's, might as well buy from us and you make money by assembling them and selling it to third countries. So this is a curious thing. We need a very, very, very thorough understanding of China. Some good diplomats have a nuanced understanding of China, but we need deeper understanding. What do you call it? Hard understanding of China. You know, Americans, because of their business dealing in the last, since the Tiananmen Square or 90s, the reform, Deng Xiaoping reform policy, in 20, 30 years, they're thorough about understanding Chinese mind. Cultivating friendship, cultivating personal relationship. This is what matters in China. We don't apply those mechanisms. And as a result, the Chinese score points on the negotiation also, and they get feedback from the Americans. Have a different feedback. The most of the companies, corporates, would be supplying information to the American system. So if the Adanis and the Ambanis are well entrenched into the Chinese business market, we should be using them. What they do in China and how they wish to deal with China. So the nation is also, the nation benefits from their experience. People, executives who go there, well, we can stop going there, but those people should do business, make money from the Chinese. If Chinese are rich, we should make money from the Chinese, not the other way around.
Mr. Stobdan, one last question, and then I want to go to Dr. Swamy. You said that, we didn't lose that much land, but you were saying that the farmers or the nomads were finding it difficult to have their cattle graze and things like that. Why is that? Are they lost land, or are they not allowed to go beyond a point? Or I just wanted to know what really is the issue there. It was one of the questions one of the viewers asked. So. Yeah,
that person must be knowing the answer also. He seems to be a knowledgeable person. So, this kind of incursion actually took place after the death of Deng Xiaoping. After 62 war, in the 70s they kept quiet. There was a lull. During reforms period in China, Deng Xiaoping open door policy, Chinese didn't do much in the border areas to trouble us. Once he died, then they started looking at us in a very different way. They started having very assertive policies, and they started with capturing our nomads' pasture land. Pasture land, we don't have summer pasture land. We have winter pasture land. You know what is winter pasture land? In winter, there are no greeneries anywhere. So what happens is that during summer, the fodder, the grass grow in the plateau, and then by October it is covered by snow. So by December, January, we take our cattle, we take our sheep and livestock in that area, and the sheep and the animal themselves dig out the grass under the snow. These are in hundreds of kilometers, and lakhs of animals go there for looking for winter food for them. And the Chinese push their nomads on those neutral pasture lands where we used to graze. The Chinese also pushed the Tibetan nomads for grazing. So we used to have conflict all the time, every summer, every winter. Up to March, this problem occurs. I'm sure during now the Chinese New Year starts, there are exchange of gifts also. There are problems also. So we can say it is a civilian conflict. The military doesn't get involved. But I won't say these are LAC. These are in the Koyul sector, in the southeastern, in the Phunchok sector, where I think the grazing land mutually used, I mean, for both sides. We have stopped going there now because the Chinese have been asserting. Now the border is so tense that nobody wants to take risk. If I am the military commander, I will also not risk sending our animals and and nomads into that area, because it will create another situation.
Is that neutral land? Are you saying it's neutral land, or is it Chinese land?
No, these are disputed. These are lines. These are areas. There are no defined position. There are, everything is unclear. It can be yours. It can be theirs. You also claim. They also claim. So there are no easy answer in this. So that's why I'm saying technically this cannot be solved. It can be only solved politically. If the two leaders meet and give and take, something take place, that's possible. As such, you keep on fighting for every inch of land, and there is no such thing there. Both sides claim huge land. Even before 1962 war, they had captured 12,500 square kilometer from it. Before 62. Then after 62, they captured the more land. So can you imagine now how to push them back? It's a serious issue. And it's not easy to push them back also. Let me tell you and frankly speaking, in our psyche, 𝐒𝐻𝐻, to me, it was not mine. I used to go there only to collect some, lake salt. We don't have sea. We have these salt lakes. So we used to collect during winter. In the autumn, you go and collect salt, and we come. But we don't stay there. Even the military don't go there and stay there. So we didn't go beyond 𝐶𝐲𝐽 Valley. These are, dead bodies are there, or skeletons are lying there. This used to be a trending route, which Ladakhi's king closed it because we were conquered from that area by the Mongols all the time, not by the Chinese. We were conquered from the north by the Uyghurs, by Tungans, or by the Kalmuks, by the Zungars. These are the people of those nomadic Mongols used to invade us from that route, from the Galwan Valley, from 𝐒𝐻𝐻 plateau, and they used to go up to Tibet. So we were, in fact, now there are a lot of Chinese books coming that how the Chinese bribed the Ladakhis to keep a watch on the Zungar Mongols so that they don't invade the Chinese in the 17th century. And these are written by Europeans also, like Italians and the French. They keep coming out with these sources from the Manchu history says that Ladakhis were bribed by the Chinese to be a spy, where the Sikhs are coming, the Kashmiris are coming, the Uyghurs are coming, the Mongols are coming, because we are at the center pot, we are at the strategic place where everybody meets in Ladakh. All the big civilization meets in Ladakh. All the religion meets in Ladakh. All the geography meets there. So Chinese understand the value of Ladakh. Unfortunately, British India partly understood, partly didn't understand. But then independent India left Ladakh on the mercy of Sheikh Abdullahs and the, all those creatures who are in Kashmir. And they didn't care. They were obsessed with their valley. Ladakh, they thought, is a burden for them. They never took care of us. Now I think we are a union territory. It's a very good thing. We are very happy about it. But at the same time, I think once now you have created union territory there, you should do it properly with certain amount of institutional and the constitutional safeguards, and also certain amount of weight. Just creating on paper is not sufficient. Chinese are watching at this area very closely, and if you mishandle that area, it will be very, very, not a very good job.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Swamy. It's almost an hour and 40 minutes now. I mean, you've been watching China for 30, 40 years. Okay, so would love to hear some brief thing from your side, and then maybe Jagdish can conclude it. It's hour and 40 minutes. Fascinating discussion. Yeah.
Dr. Swamy, before you proceed, as Mr. Stobdan has told us, there could be a conflict, or China will start asserting. So we also want to know, in perhaps your closing remarks, if there is a conflict on our border, full-fledged conflict localized to the border, what could be the outcome? How would our military perform? We want to know from you in your answer. Then Mr. Ramesh will wind up. Thank you.
But well, look, I come from partly a defense background. I worked in a defense thing also. And when I talked to my colleague, said we can easily defeat them.
Yeah.
We can give them
Agreed.
a bloody nose. We can give them. We are not 62. That's a standard answer I get. But that has to be verified and tested. We actually haven't fought, but then they cite, this Nathula incident of something, the other incident in Arunachal Pradesh. So they seem to be very confident, and it's a good thing. Indian military is very tough, but it's not going to be hand to hand again. Fighting a war is not a easy thing unless we're very sure about winning it. We should not even think about it. It's not a. It's not a. That's why you said you don't leave uh, things to the military journals to decide what to do. There is a saying on that. I will not opt for military option, but yes, we are capable. Only thing is that we have not sufficiently modernized our Indian army. Modernization of Indian military has not taken place. Look at the Chinese. They have gone ahead of us on everything in Air Force, in Navy, maritime. In terms of comparison, I will not compare. To be very frank, China is powerful, which everybody knows, but they don't admit. I admit because I understand China better than anybody, say, from Kerala, because of the geography comparison. But Kerala will understand China better because they have ancient relationship. Even
Bodhidharma.
Yeah, Bodhidharma. The Tamil Buddhism had reached China much before. The Pandits were very expert. Even they went up to Vietnam, Brahmins of Tamil Nadu. And even Kung Fu has gone from Kerala. I was told that, during the wedding, when we give a silk sari to your daughter, that has also been started from Kerala because of Chinese silk used to come to Kerala. Yes. And then I was told in China that no Havan was complete without a Vastu coming from China those days. Normally, India didn't have camphor those days. And that bloom we sweep the floor these days, that is now we grow here, but earlier it used to come from China. So in a Havana, when you require so many Vastus, those elements, many elements you required from all direction, including from China, used to be called. And during the Gupta period, no Havana was complete without something coming from China. In the morning stotra of last Hindu king, Vikramaditya, he used to praise China and worship China, and then used to eat food. After offering his stotra around his breakfast, that plate, Kashmire, Kabule, Sri Lanka, China Deshe, and then he used to invoke his own god. Then he will eat. It's like an offering of food. So it's part of our disposition in our mind, which we have forgotten. But if you read the Gupta period stotra of every king, you will find all those things, how it is so important for us. But unfortunately, when the Mughals came, Bakhtiyar Khilji and all, burnt all the universities of India where the Chinese used to come. Once those universities were burnt out, then nobody had any interest in coming to China, to India. Some came to Kerala and Tamil Nadu through the ocean, but the land route was closed because everything was destroyed. Takshila went away, the Nalanda went away, all this Saravasti went away, where the big universities, Sanskrit, Pali used to be. And the Chinese were vice chancellor of Nalanda University also.
Right.
And when the king used to be ordained in the Forbidden City, the chief priest of Nalanda used to be taken for a couple of months traveling to China to ordain the king. Those are the tradition, Bodhidharma, like for example, is to them. But to bring all those things story in the modern times is very difficult. Very, very difficult. And it's a new generation, they don't want to learn also. I find it very difficult to bring some meaning in our relationship. Obviously, we will not remain enemy all the time. we should interact. It's a big neighbor. We can't be friend, but we can be we should stay as neighbor, big countries. And we had his history, 2000 years. The Chinese ambassador in United States, when Clinton was there as well, he said that India ruled over China for 2000 years without sending a single army. They were asked, if you go to China in the interior part, they still cut your feet. He said, you come from my God land, so I worship you.
Tianxi.
Yeah, so what can we do? But obviously, Communist Party is also responsible for destroying all those elements, and we cannot blame ourselves. They are also fully responsible. And then there are intermediaries, who they don't want us to be friend. Even in Buddhism, there are other Buddhists who do not want us to be a good friend, because that Buddhism and our Buddhism is different from the third Buddhism. That's another problem. And I tell you, even if it is Communist Party of China, Chinese Communist Party is working on the future of the Chinese are building on the basis of Buddhism. If you read Gokhale's article, you'll find that every policy is Buddhist driven, meaning saying that if you have control over Buddhism, then you have control over Asia. And if you have control over Asia, then you're going to have control over the globe, world. Basically, not just Buddhism is not about religion or some philosophy. Buddhism is about market. It's about industry. It's about corporates. It's about, it's politics actually. So therefore, the Chinese have already spent $6 billion in search of the future Buddha, what you call it, Maitreya Buddha. He says that Siddhartha Gautam Buddha is a past Buddha, historical Buddha. It's an Indian Buddha. So they are looking for the future Buddha. So they want to find him in China. So they are doing research, including the Western philosophers are involved in this. I know about it. Every year the conference takes place. And one day you will find that the Maitreya Buddha is being born in China. And we are still talking about who is going to be the next Dalai Lama. They are thinking about the next Buddha himself. And, Buddha is next. Buddha would be reincarnation of Adi Buddha, Buddha himself. Adi Buddha. Dalai Lama would be a reincarnation of Avalokiteshvara only, who is only a Bodhisattva, not the Buddha. So there is a different dynamics happening there. Unfortunately, we don't study these things. Even I don't study. I see, morning, evening, some here and there, some websites here and there. It's a very shoddy understanding of China, but it's a fascinating subject.
Well, we can go on for days with the kind of data bank and knowledge bank that our ambassador has displayed in this short time. And I think what we need to do is perhaps call you back in April after more events have taken place. I fully agree with you that the Chinese secretly have a lot of respect for India at the local level. When I had studied Chinese during my college years, and while my practice is weak, but I still remember a lot of these Chinese sayings. They used to refer to India as Shitian Jungo. Jungo means Middle Kingdom, and Shitian means the Western God. Tian is sky and God and so on. Similarly, they used to say to those people who came from India and spoke Chinese, they used to say to them, Tiempo pa, tipo pa, jo pa, yangwetse huisho junga hua. That is, do not fear the gods, do not fear the devil, but do fear the foreigner who speaks Chinese. So I think one of the ways to develop fear is to learn Chinese, learn and deal with them in their own language. And what you have said, what the thing you laid down, I think you gave me advice that I should go to the Rashtrapati Bhavan I'm giving you advice, please come to Parliament. Because if you are in Parliament, we'll have a completely different perspective in no time. So maybe
I was telling you in a lighter way, not serious manner. For myself, I don't think I can ever become Rajya Sabha or something like that. But if I get an opportunity, yes, we need to change the discourse in a different way. I'm quite tired with this television debate. I feel very sorry for our own countrymen who are fooled every day on some pretext or the other. They make a lot of noise. Um,
yes,
so it's not good.
yes,
Educated people should be there. Knowledgeable people should be there. It's good for the country. If can do good for the country, why not? But
yes,
then we will have our own age, and then we will all phase out. That's a problem.
yes. No, I agree with your long-term perspective that India and China should have a working relationship. But somewhere we have to demonstrate to them that their past arrogance from arising from 1962 is now a thing of the past. And actually, there have been incidents, you mentioned them in passing, I'll repeat it. The In 1967, we gave him a thrashing on that Nathula Pass.
Mm.
And in fact, our brave soldiers and their commanders, even took tanks where no tanks go up. But they did it and they really wiped them out. Then this Sumdurongchu Valley
Yes,
in
don't you?
Arunachal, there also we gave them a thrashing.
Yes.
So there are only two conflicts that have taken place.
No. Sir, this June
Yes,
2020,
yes,
even if
right.
it is 38, okay, forget about 125 that I gave.
I agree. Sorry.
The conclusion of this Galwan incident is that the psychic burden of Indians that we had from 62, that we've lost the war, that is now completely broken.
Yeah,
We should
that's
not
right.
carry that hangover of the
Yes,
62. Many people suffer from that problem.
yes, that's right.
Many of my senior, I have not seen that war. I may have not been born also. 61, 62, I was just born. But everybody talks about that not in a good way. So I think this Galwan incident is a blessing in disguise also.
Yes,
In a way, we have achieved our own problem about, forgetting about that era.
that's right.
I agree.
So, well, sir, we don't know how to thank you. This has been one of the most scintillating discussions. The reactions of the people watching is also there. I'm sure it's going to be a very big turnout that we have had. And we look forward, and please be don't say no when we call you in April, no matter in what lofty position you are in. Please come again, and we want to. This kind of knowledge is not easy to get even from books. It requires a great deal of study and what in Sanskrit we call as manthan. Just working, putting it all together in a logical one. So thank you very, very much for this session that we had with you, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much for calling me, sir. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, Jagdish.
Okay. Go ahead, Jagdishji. Go ahead, concluding.
Yeah. It was a very interesting discussion today we had on the situation in Ladakh and on the border. And I thank our guest, Ambassador Stobdan and Dr. Subramanian Swamy, and my co-host Ramesh Swamy. I also have to thank our technical team led by Ashish Shetty, Swaminathan, Tejas Navalgul, Rakesh Gadgi, Ishwar Iyer, Ajesh Nair, and Vishal Mehta. I also have to remind you that we will be with another topic next Sunday at 8 p.m. on our show with another interesting discussion. So I thank our viewers, which are across 125 plus countries. And as I mentioned, last week viewership was more than 1,12,531 viewers. And today also I see from whatever figures I'm seeing, because we are not on one channel, but we are on various social media channels, the response which we get from our viewers, I thank all of them. So we see you next Sunday at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Dhanyavad and thank you. Jai Hind.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.